Welcome, everybody. This is Coffee with a Founder, not a journalist. I used to do the journalist ones, but I'm Beck Bamberger, and we do this show to better understand why founders do venture-backed startups. How do you have to be certainly crazy? What level of crazy do you have to be? And why do you keep coming back to do the same thing again? It's called founderitis, as I've described, because it's an ongoing disease because we just can't help it, and you got to keep going.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. And with us today, talking about the next 1,000 years of how we're going to have fission power plants. We won't be able to fact check it, but Ben, it is a vision I really like. Is
Thank you.
Ben Kellie. He is a co-founder and CEO of Applied Atomics. You actually are based in Alaska, which is unusual a bit for venture-backed founders, perhaps so. So let's start with that. Why Alaska?
Born and raised.
There you
Really
go.
love it there.
It's absolutely beautiful.
I left for a number of years. I was in graduate school in Lower 48. I worked for SpaceX all around the US, but
Yep.
built my last company there and really like being there. And this is a nationwide company. So our team is a little bit distributed, but we'll be centering up to deploy these plants wherever they're needed.
Got you. So let's talk about these plants. What are we doing here for the 1,000+ years? And perhaps
Sure.
what brought you the idea, because you were at SpaceX and had an engineering background and all that great stuff. So
Sure.
how do we get to building this?
It's a great question. So, yeah, it's really the early years at SpaceX. When we think about what was broken in space, we had gone to the moon, we had
Yeah.
the ISS, we knew how to go to outer space. It wasn't a
Yeah.
question of physics. It was
People
a
can buy
question of,
tickets now or whatever. Yeah.
well, sure, but that's what's changed, right? The
Yeah,
question
exactly.
was cost and availability of actually being able to get there. How do I
True.
know when I can go and how much is it going to cost? It was always cost plus. It was really difficult. Schedules were always slipping. So really what Falcon 9 did, and I'm talking specifically about
Yeah.
that vehicle, is we vertically integrated the whole company around it and developed all of it and deployed all of it. And, fixed that cost and deployment part, which, has gone really well. And they launch
Yes,
all
it
the time.
has.
So when we look at the nuclear industry, we kind of see the same thing, right? Which is that we understand how nuclear power works. There are 94 operating reactors in the United States right now, providing
Mm-hmm.
clean commercial power. The
Mm-hmm.
challenge has been cost and availability. And so our thesis is less that we need to invent new fuels and invent new physics and invent, different ways of splitting the atom or constraining that reaction. And really what we just need to focus on is cost and deployment. So some other teams have done this, but they're working more on how do we deploy, how do we buy a reactor and go deploy it? It's more of project development. We're actually saying, hey, we're developing the reactor. We have a leg up on that. We've licensed some really great IP. And then how do we keep our hands on the control levers and say, okay, this is our internal, designs that we're pushing forward. Through our supply chain to control cost and control schedule at every point. So we're our own project manager, but we're also developing our own technology. And I think you have to control both. I don't think you can just be a pure tech developer and leave
No,
deployment alone.
no,
And I don't
no.
think you can be a pure deployer and leave the technology alone. So it's about doing both.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Now you did mention though here early on, like, oh, it's the cost. Okay, it's the implementation.
Mhm,
I'd also say it was maybe the blowback or the perception that like, oh, we don't want to
mhm.
have this. We don't want to have this.
Yeah.
But I just looked. This is an article that came out literally yesterday. U.S.
Mhm.
strikes $80 billion deal for new nuclear power plants. In other words,
Right.
it feels like it's ever more a moment, and it's both. It's impartial, Democrat, Republican, whatever, of looking at
That's
this
right.
alternative power that's coming back. So
Mhm.
I feel like nuclear is having a comeback in
Huge moment.
just a brand perspective, which maybe 10 years ago was like, oh, nuclear power.
I think
What would
that's
you say
right.
on that? Yeah.
I would say that's right. And I agree that it's
It's always been clean, but
bipartisan.
people, yeah, it is bipartisan. Go ahead.
I think the technologies have improved. It's I don't have the exact numbers, but essentially, even with us shutting down plants over time, it's provided, I think it's providing 50% of the renewable power in the US, or at least
Yeah.
20% of the
Yeah.
overall power in the
Yeah.
US. That's how dense and effective that it is. And so, there's concerns with nuclear power, just like there's concerns with all forms of power
Yes.
generation. But
Yes.
I always say that if what came out of the smokestacks at fossil fuel power plants was not invisible and you could actually see everywhere it went and everything it touched, for instance, a coal plant irradiates more area than a nuclear power plant does,
Mhm. Mhm.
then I think we would be a lot more in arms about how we're actually generating our power. But because it's invisible, and we only see these effects show up as kind of secondary, tertiary effects,
Mhm.
it slides under the radar a little bit more. And so we really have to learn how to
Mhm.
compare apples to apples and be literate in the whole safety case top to bottom in order to make the best choice
Mhm.
of how to proceed.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and this is why like the story component is so fascinating. 10 hours ago, I'm just looking at the news here.
Mhm.
Bloomberg's title about this investment is the risky movement to make America
Mm,
nuclear again. Again, see,
sure.
it's like the vernacular of like risky or
I know.
scary or whatever. So this is a PR problem as well, along with cost and
Oh, it
deployment
is.
and all this stuff. So I always
I
think about
think
that.
I think you're right. I mean, just to underline that, I think messaging is a huge issue, and not even just PR, but functionally, how do you go to communities and work with communities to
Yes.
show them what the benefits can be and be a real partner through the entire
Yes.
process, rather than
Yes.
just kind of showing up and deploying and say, here we
Yeah. Good
are.
luck. Good luck. Yeah.
Uh,
Bye. Yeah.
Good
Mm,
luck. Yeah, bye.
mm,
So
mm.
I think it's a big piece. I would say, I mean, that the framing in media has changed. It
It
still could
has.
use some more change, but we are
Definitely.
seeing that evolution happen. Yeah,
Mhm. Okay, so in your world, not
mhm,
1,000 years, let's say, but let's say 5 years, what could
great.
nuclear power look like in the US? We have gone from 94 to maybe what?
That's kind of why we
Was that
exist.
the question?
Actually,
That's why you exist. So
that's
you're
the
like, as
question,
many
right?
as we can sell.
Well, not even that,
I know.
but the challenge is that from our perspective, a lot of the advanced reactor folks are just doing pure technology development, and so
Yeah.
they're talking one timeline, but if you really look at what's needed to secure their supply chain and do the regulatory process, they're like a decade plus out.
Mm,
And then who
mhm,
knows if it's economical?
mm,
And so
mm,
our whole thesis was like, well, let's take what works and let's make it economical and let's try to deploy sooner. So for
mm,
us in the next 5 years, it's about having a plant up online, operating, selling commercial power, doing so safely and proving out so that we can go scale across, the 5 to 10, 15 years after that.
mhm.
And so I think, that's really how we have set the entire program up is deployment 2030.
Oh, okay. All right, fine. By the way, on your website, you have minimizing miracles in nuclear development. What does that mean?
Yes.
Your approach, minimizing miracles. It's
Yeah.
avant-garde. Tell me more.
Well, okay. So essentially, it's the frustration that I had building my last company in aerospace, watching rocket companies be like, "Well, what if we 3D printed the whole rocket? And what if we dropped it off a 747 over the ocean? And what if we did
Oh,
all these kind of almost Rube Goldberg technologically differentiation gimmicks?" But you go
this
and you
was the
talk to me, you
launch
go,
company that you had. Yeah, it
"This
was
was
called the
yeah,
launch company. Yeah.
the launch company was the my last
Mhm.
company. We worked with all
Yes.
these venture-backed rocket companies,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I just remember
Oh,
talking to their C-suite and being like, "How does this make the rocket go to space sooner or faster or more reliably?" And it's like, "Well," and you dig in and it's like, what it really does is it's a technological differentiator because that's an easy story to sell to investors.
yeah. Of course.
And so we feel that, if you're trying to do something that's really hard, like make low Earth orbit super accessible through launch, you've got to do what Falcon 9 did, which is work with technology stacks already well understood and then focus on deployment. So for us, that's about
Mhm,
minimizing
mhm,
miracles. If you were going to
mm.
climb Mount Everest for the first time, you wouldn't take a bunch of experimental technologies because there's no
No.
bonus points for
No.
making it extra hard on yourself.
No.
And so that's what
Exactly.
minimize miracles is. It's a hard enough journey to execute, but minimize your technological risk and put it on
Ah.
execution risk, because both are major factors in what we're doing.
Ah, ah, ooh, I like that approach. It's
Thanks.
avant-garde for I think, in the startup world, like minimize miracles. Hopefully the VCs are liking that you have.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I think the
now
right partners are liking it.
well, it begs a question. What do you
Right.
mean
It forces the
minimizing
conversation.
miracles? What are we doing with that? Okay, I like that. Now you did take a little sabbatical
I
for about
did.
2 years. On
Mhm.
your LinkedIn, it says retiring from aerospace after 11 years, but here you are once again, Ben.
Not in
So
aerospace though.
so yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right. Okay, so you're retired from aerospace, but in that sabbatical time,
Mhm.
what was going on in your mind? Clearly, it birthed this, but that
Mhm.
was 2 years of you what were you doing? I think other founders wanna hear this because there are
Yeah.
ones who I know lots of them, they take a sabbatical, and they're trying to do actually what I call the anti-sabbatical, which is, like, not, like, figure out what's the next thing? What's the next
I
thing?
know what
One
I'm
of my
gonna do.
friends
Yeah.
yeah, Jeremy Yamaguchi, shout out to him from Splash, was just like, "I need to do not thinking of the
Mhm.
next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Let me just try to have an open brain that's blank. Very
That's
hard.
exactly right. Well, yeah,
So what did you do? Yeah.
that was exactly what I tried to do.
Okay. How'd
Was
it
have an
go?
open brain that was blank. Oh, it was really hard. But that was like that was the opportunity, right? I don't just get frustrated with it and be like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is really hard. I'm done."
Yeah.
It was a big opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
when I sold my company and then
Mm,
left and could no longer, like, you can't sign in to any of these
yeah.
systems. It's not even like, "Oh, I deleted the app," or "It's not on my phone." It's like, you cannot sign in. You realize this, like, buzzing in the back of your head is maybe gone for the first time
Mm,
ever.
mhm.
But then a lot of other voices rush in to replace it. And I noticed that I would get really excited about, and it's also one of those things where, like, once you post like, I'm not working for 2 years, you never get more job offers, right? If you post, I could really use a job, you get nothing. If you post, I'm done
Ooh,
working for a while,
fascinating, fascinating tip.
that's when the job offers roll in.
Mm.
So it's kind of
Oh,
weird. But
did
I would take these
mm,
phone calls,
yeah.
and people like, come and do this and come and do that. And I just found, like, if I was really honest, I was like, I don't think I really care about any of this, and I need to figure out what I actually care about. And so it was really hard to have that empty mind for a while, but I think it was extremely good practice. And I think it was really important because then you get to think about what you really care about. And, like, I always say, like, what's your why? And and maybe center on the
So
fact, like,
so
for me, I was in my mid 30s, I had to maybe pick a new why from when I was in my 20s.
ooh, okay. So tell us about finding that, because so many people are damn lost, Ben, as you know. I mean, people in aggregate, but I think even for founders, they were
Yeah.
so tied to that last thing that they did. Then they sold, and they're like, oh no, who am I now? I know at least three people I can mention. I'm not going to mention names, but like,
Sure.
they're just they're like, I don't know. And so they are in this discovery of care, let's say, or what your purpose is. So was there a way? And by the way, this is one of my questions. What's your hack? Is this
Yeah.
something that you figured out or hacked?
No, I think there's no
No.
hack.
Okay.
I think that's the key. I think it's an extremely personal journey. I think for some people the answer is, "Oh, work is all that I care about, and I wanna totally put my life entirely in that." I don't think that's most people, and certainly
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the answer for me, but I think you have to, like, really honestly interrogate it, and this is one of my favorite things, which is being open to the question, like, practicing being open to a big question, and
Mm,
instead of rushing to an answer, sitting with the question a little bit and, like, let it chew at you, and
mm,
and fight with yourself a little bit and wrestle with it. That is a more important process than whatever answer you actually end up coming up with.
mm.
I think the answer for me is, like, I was kinda trying to move from what I call, like, a boy psychology, which I think is a desire to die for something. We're always, like, looking for something to die for, right? It's like, "Oh, I'd give my life for this. I'd go and do this
Where,
thing. I'd go all
where,
out," right?
as compared to what? What's man's
Well,
what?
I
What?
don't know, but my current idea of what a
Okay,
more mature
fascinating, fascinating.
psychology
Okay,
my
yes.
current idea of what a more, I won't claim I have the answer, right? But, like, what I'm working with now is, like, it's actually a lot harder to live for something, right? That's really messy.
Ooh,
Like like
ooh,
like, dying for something's easy.
ooh! I
Everything
love where
fades to
this is
black.
going.
There's no
Yes, yeah. There's
consequences. You never see
well,
that happily ever after when, Romeo and Juliet are fighting over the laundry and the dishes and right? Like, how do you actually live in that
ooh,
relationship, in a mature adult relationship and in a mature adult dynamic? That's
mm,
really, really difficult. And so what are you willing to actually show up to and be a part of long term? That always ends up necessarily being a little more human, right? Because it necessitates a relationship and a dynamic. And so that's kind of where I ended up for my sabbatical is digging into those things and yeah, spending a lot of time kind of meditating and
dang.
wrestling with some of those.
Clearly, Ben, you've done the work, as they say. Wow,
Wow, that
wow.
never stops.
Yeah, well, it doesn't ever stop. If you're going to be living, you're going to be this. And
Yeah.
it brings to me, as I've told to some people, I do this work with the San Diego police and we're crisis interventionists. So we go when someone dies to help the people who are living deal with the next
Mhm.
steps and the logistics and all the things that come with death. And it's a lot of things, along with all the emotional everything, and probably the worst day of your life or year or whatever, when your spouse or whoever is now gone. And I think so often about that then, Ben, of just,
Mhm.
well, the person who's dead, yeah, it's sad, but they're gone. They're hanging out now wherever they are, right? Like this is
Sure.
they don't have to deal with this, all the
Right.
stuff that comes with it. I know that's a dire comparison to what
No,
you're
I
alluding
totally
to,
get
but
it.
just like yeah, what are you dying for? It's like, yeah, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
So
Well, we just think of these
living
things
for,
in
ooh,
terminal
ooh,
terms, right? Like, it's like,
yes.
if I could just get the job, or if I could just get
Oh,
this person to love me, or if I could just
terminal
sell my
terms. I love
business.
that.
Yeah,
So many
right.
founders get stuck in terminal terms.
Totally.
And then
I
they
do a
have
lot
the
of writing about
spiral.
this stuff.
Oh,
And
well,
so,
we're going to be looking
yeah.
up. Well, first of all, where can we find all this stuff? besides just
I'm on
Googling you?
Substack. Yeah, you can Google me. I'm on
Yeah, yeah,
Substack.
yeah.
I write a newsletter called The Next 30 Trips, and
Oh,
yeah, if this is your jam, this is what I talk
wait,
about on
wait.
there.
How come I didn't find this in my notes here? The next 30 trips?
I'm bad at
What?
SEO is probably the reason
Oh,
why.
okay. Or AEO or EO, GEO, whatever. Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah,
Looking
I don't
that
know
then.
even know what those are. So
Oh,
definitely
that's
those.
answer engine optimization.
Mm,
Then you got to get so that all your
got to get on
chat
your level.
bots and all the
Hmm.
things can find you. And, it's the new SEO basically for
Okay.
all of us because, of course, we need a new thing. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the next 30 trips. I am here. Okay. Okay. An evolving exploration of how to do hard things well.
There
Hmm.
you go.
You explore the tension between I'm giving you the PR here, Ben.
Yeah, it's
Explores
great.
the tension between entrepreneurship and living slower lives of wider purpose that honor our central questions, true motivations, and how we can do the work within our work. Oh, you took it out of my mouth, Ben. I said you're doing the work.
It's it.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So hence this makes sense then why you're in Alaska, I'd say.
Yeah, I think for me that it makes a lot of sense. It's a land I'm very connected to and a place that
Yeah.
I can really dig in and I love the seasonality and the
Yeah.
pacing that comes with that seasonality, and I think it kind of begs some of these like bigger thoughts. So yeah, it's a really great place
Yes.
for that.
Yes. Ah, fascinating. Okay. Do you ever get, I know you're in the midst of, raising and doing all this stuff.
Sure.
Do you get VC responses of like, well, you're not in the Bay Area? Or why are
Constantly.
you
Constantly.
constantly? Okay. So
I
what's your response?
okay, so it depends on, and I'm being
Depends, of
way too
course.
transparent and real here,
We
but
love it. This is what this
it
show is for.
depends. Great. It
Mhm.
depends on how genuine the question is. So if the question is very genuine, then I respond very genuinely, which is, look, we have to build plants all over the US. We've put together an organizational
Mhm.
theory, which you can read in our data room,
Mhm.
which goes through how we'll be able to do these things, how we build
Mhm.
up talent. But the most important thing is having the absolute best team we can have, regardless of their location. I
Mhm.
travel a lot, as evidenced by taking this call from a hotel room in Virginia, and I'm always on the road, so I will be where I need to be. But imagine we have a first plant in Texas, a second plant in Virginia, then where do I live in that scenario? And so
Mhm.
people, we can talk about that. We talk a lot about how we can build hardware in this way and the different types of teams and who has to be where to accomplish what
Mhm.
things due to their
Mhm.
their different jobs. We can have a whole thoughtful discussion, and I've got a lot of
By the
research and a
way,
lot of things there, right?
wait, by the way,
So
just because you said
please.
you're recording in a hotel room, I'm recording in my house, and my lovely electrician is back there. So anyway, we're
That's
doing
cool.
the things.
No
Yeah,
worries.
we're doing.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
good.
it's
He's
great.
good.
We're all
Pedro's
on the
back there.
move.
Yeah, he's
But
good.
I think though that like I've also had people just be like, "Oh, like, are you okay? Like, can I send a plane for you?" Like this is like this whole response of like, what horrible misfortune must have befallen you that you were not one of God's chosen who gets to be in the Bay Area. It's like this whole smug attitude. And I've literally
Don't
said
even start
to
me on that.
very, very
Mhm.
well-known name brand VCs who I will not name drop here,
No, we
but
will not.
you would know.
It's not classy. Yes.
It's not classy, but I've just been like, "Well, why are you in San Francisco?" And then we just kinda look at each other,
And then the
and
conversation's done.
well, so the conversation has died
Probably.
before, but I've also had people be like, "I have to be here." I'm like, "Okay, well,
See,
at least you're honest,
see,
right?"
at
And I
least you're
go,
being
"Well, I don't."
honest.
And I've got nothing against San Francisco. It's a great city.
It
It's
is.
just we should all be where it speaks to us and where we think we can do the most good. And um, I also have 200,000 air miles this year already, and it's only October. So you show up, do the
Ben.
work, do what needs to be done, right? Um, anyway, so yes, it's a wide spectrum of answers depending on
Wow.
how serious and how genuine people are.
Oh, good responses though, based on the type of question, the tone of question that
The
you get.
tone of the question, the
The
spirit of the question.
tone, yes, yes. And I ask that only because, you know, unless you live under a rock, SF is very back, and New York is very back. There's a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
like, fighting for the leases now because no one can get an office space. And I'm like, oh God, the pendulum is always swinging. That's my favorite thing. That's just more
absolutely,
my autonomous brain. The pendulum is always swinging, and it's just on that side,
absolutely,
tremendously so. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, Ben, another one of the questions that I like to tee up here, besides what's your hack, which maybe well, actually, do you have a hack? Do we have any
I
hack?
have I have zero hacks for anything. I'm
Hmm.
very anti-hack. I don't do
Okay.
hacks.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Well, let's define hack. Let's define
Okay.
hack because I don't want this question coming off of like, here's how I cheated to do that. Like, it's not that.
Oh, okay.
It's more,
Okay.
how did you do something that seemed maybe miraculous or like very difficult, or your little playbook, your thing of like,
Okay, like
this
a
is a
toolkit.
hack. Yeah, a little tool or something. That's what I want to get to. What do you have?
Okay.
Oh, look, we have a show and tell. Look at you have a journal.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh,
I do
oh,
have a journal. I'm always fiddling with things. I
oh, me too.
fiddle while I think. If I'm not on video, I always take calls on as I go walk. I'm better when I'm in motion. Okay, so what's my toolkit, but applied to which piece? Sorry, I lost the thread on that. Did we lose you?
This is us, part two, basically, Ben, because the power got cut off when I was getting electricity. My electrician was dealing with stuff. So anyway, it's a different day, slightly different attire, all the stuff, but we wanted to continue and wrap up for the rest of this wonderful podcast. Okay, so Ben, one of the things you mentioned that's not leaving me is that you said more of a boyish opinion is to have something you die for. But a more mature view and thinking of purpose is to think of it in terms of what are you willing to live for? Yeah. And I was like, wow, I thought about this all this weekend, more or less. I'm just like the boy versus a full-fledged human, let's say. So yeah, how did you come to this? Obviously, you write a newsletter and think about all these philosophical things, but tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the takeaway is like, if you're picturing something, it doesn't have to be a literal death, right? It's just this idea that like this version of you is coming to an end. So if everything you're picturing, it's like the happily ever after is like this final frame and it's fuzzy or black after that, that's a great idea or a great example of what I call kind of a terminal dream. Like you have this dream where everything rushes to this point and then there's nothing beyond it.
Yeah.
And so that causes us to do a lot of really silly things. It causes us to weigh things in a way that maybe don't make a lot of sense, to do these cost trades that like make a lot of sense if things really were do or die up to that point. But if they're not, and you got to keep living with it, don't make as much sense to live with long term. So the idea of living with something is like, oh, well, everything's not going to fade to black. I'm not going to get the job and everything's all figured out. I'm not going to sell the company, everything's all figured out. I have to I have to sell the company on Tuesday and I have to continue on Wednesday. My life is going to keep moving in the same way. And so it's really kind of trying to recast that in that way where it's like, well, okay, what choices would I make in that mentality and how would I approach building things? Probably wouldn't be so, life or death, right? I wouldn't make so many poor choices and I would actually think about things a little more sustainably. I might think about them a little more holistically as I proceeded. So that's the idea.
The thing I'd add to that too is everyone just continues. Everything else just continues. So in your little world, it's the biggest thing, or you sell your company, or I remember the day, for instance, and this is like 2 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, I got anointed, like, okay, you did your PhD and now you're a doctor. And it was like, and then, that's it. There's nothing else. There's like, the world is all continuing. The world is all continuing. And this death work that I do with the San Diego Police, for example, is like the same thing where it just like continues on. It just continues on. So yeah, life continues.
It does.
Okay. Did we talk last time on, like we talked about like a hack and you didn't like the word hack, if I recall?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that because now I'm changing it to like a how-to. So how-to. What was a how-to that you were really enthused about? This might be a redo from what we talked about, but go ahead.
Sure, that's fine. A how-to specifically around some of this, like dealing with the discernment between a terminal dream and a more sustainable one, or just in general?
Just any how-to, actually.
I don't know. I don't think I have any top of mind.
Okay.
We got to narrow it down. Maybe I have too many threads I'm chasing right now, but I think in general, if I'm speaking in general, my how-to approach to everything is building toolboxes. So let me know if this is the direction you want to go or not. But essentially, when you're in engineering school, the problems they're teaching you to solve are not the problems, ideally, that you're going to be given in the real world, because all of those answers are in the back of the book. And so what you're doing, it says you're building an analysis tool set. But I don't think a lot of students realize that. And so they're learning something that they're like, oh, I learned this in this class and I'm going to go apply it forever. What you're actually learning is like analytical thinking, data gathering, how to get two intrinsic variables if you're a thermodynamicist, whatever. And so a good example of this in reality is like when I was working on the SpaceX landing barges back in the day, like nobody had built one of these before. They didn't exist.
Yeah, we have no
So
idea.
what's
Yeah.
the plan? And you have to have a toolbox. And so for me, that toolbox tends to be the only thing I really focus on, is like adding experiences, adding stories, and adding things to it, such that I can be a little wiser and have a little more discernment down the road when I run into a similar situation. So you're trying to pattern match so that you can apply the right tools to the right situation. And I kind of think in those frameworks, I suppose.
Okay. I like that. When did your thinking come to this?
When did I arrive at approaching problem solving in this way? Yeah, I think I was forced to.
Back in school? Yeah.
Well,
Perhaps.
I mean, yeah, in college, sure. But like certainly when I got my first job at SpaceX, there's too much to know.
Yeah. Yep.
There's just simply too many things to know, even about a single rocket, and everything you need to know about that specific rocket on this specific mission. Everything's got to do that. You need to instead get into this framework mentality where it's like, well, what is the outcome they desire? And what are the ways that I can apply my abilities to positively affect that outcome? And so like an example I use all the time is like, if I was a world-class chef, I would be thinking about like, well, who do I need to feed to get the outcomes I want, so that they're going into the day fully fueled, or they're inspired, or they're creative. Like, but it's like within the ways that we best interact with the world, how do we apply our abilities through our frameworks to get the outcomes we want? Because there's simply too much to know, right? Like I can't do everything for everybody.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I think it's just like the lack of information that you have, and the paradox that is too.
Well, and that's the biggest thing. And thanks for saying that, actually, because that recalled to me is like, you're making really high stakes decisions with very little information.
Yeah, because it's too big for one person to collectively hold.
Yeah. And to get and to get that one person completely up to speed with all the context of it, it's like, no, like you have to get really good at discernment of like what's important, what's not important, and can I make a full decision with partial information? And I think that was the thing that I ended up getting really good at. I would not say good since like it's a new thing every time, but it's something I have a lot of experience with, and I got very comfortable. I got comfortable with making those decisions as best I can.
Very good. Well, Ben, I don't know if we talked about this on our last time as we were redoing, because I don't think we did when I was listening to it, but did we talk about who you are becoming and why? This is my new question I'm adding into people.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, real talk, like I feel like I'm finally becoming myself. I think I spent a lot of my life trying to be other people, or trying to like, I'm the firstborn. I really look up to my dad. I love my dad. I think like I spent a long time trying to be my dad. And kind of tamping down those ways in which I was very different from him. And I think really the story of my 30s has been like embracing those things as gifts, rather than, pushing them away, which causes a lot of rift and a lot of problem internally. And so I've really kind of just been enjoying like figuring out who I am and what I'm really about, and trying to become more myself.
And what does that look like? Especially as it relates to being, let's say, a CEO.
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest way, and this is obvious, is like everything's rooted in a sense of authenticity, right? And so it could be as simple as coming on a podcast and talking about terminal dreams and authenticity. I don't think that's probably not something that happens with a lot of deep
not
tech
everyone
CEOs.
on here. Yeah,
and so,
very true.
I mean, just showing up kind of like as I guess I did as a kid, where you're put in these situations, maybe you don't always have the full context, and you're just like, well, here I am. This is me. This is my best foot forward. And just being authentic in every interaction has really been a focus. And I think it's important as a CEO, because there is a lot of inauthentic behavior, I think, in founders, and because we're trying to be who we think the world needs us to be. But unfortunately, or fortunately, people can really smell that. And
people don't like that smell.
They don't like that smell.
Because it's I think that's fake. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
especially
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I just, especially right now where everything is arguably fake, given all the AI stuff, it's like, God, I think there's like a yearning, a grasping for like, what is real? Who is this person? Is this person showing up on this little box actually the real thing? Or is it a bot that you sent or something? Or what is it?
Or is it practiced? Is it polished? Is it spun? Or is it maybe a little bit raw and authentic, even if it's not perfect? And actually, I'll tell you, one of my favorite, this is totally random, but one of my favorite like YouTube things right now that I put on my work, this guy Ari at home, and he walks around
Uh-huh.
with a giant synth, and he makes custom beats on the streets of New York and has people freestyle.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm
so
just
New
like,
York.
oh, I know. And it's just so much fun because it's just like happening in the moment. And I think
Yeah.
with this growth of LLMs, you know, we're seeing more things that are just kind of this regression to the mean. And I think it's really fun
Yeah.
to see kind of like the human spirit come out a little bit more. So I'm trying to bring that in other people, and I'm trying to bring that out in myself, and, you know, have a place where it's fun to go to work and we're working on big things, and we're all showing up as ourselves.
Yes, Ben, and we're showing up on ourselves. I really hope, as we are in this AI slop of sorts, that we just are not getting to the bell curve. I do not want to be on the. I do not want to see the bell curve. Like, that is so boring up there.
Right.
Like, I like the edge. We all like the edges
Mhm.
to some extent. I want to argue that we do. So, gosh, yes.
Yeah, there's this really cool thing that I learned about Picasso. I wrote a piece about this, but
Tell me.
essentially Picasso, I don't know if you know this, but early in his career was doing really realistic paintings. He was
Oh,
doing a lot of lifelike stuff. And then,
I actually didn't know that.
yeah, not a lot of
Okay.
people do. And he was
Hmm.
one of a bunch doing this sort of thing. And then lo and behold, the camera became prevalent during his time. And he has this really great quote, which is, well, now we know
Oh.
everything that photography isn't. Or sorry, that painting isn't, right? And so he's like, so what's painting now in the world of photos? And he took this like hard turn
Ooh.
into, you know, everything that he became famous for.
We know Picasso for.
And I
Mm.
think that there's a real argument to be made around AI with that, right? Like, there's so many things that it's genuinely useful for a lot of people, from accessibility to
Yeah.
translation to blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. But when you talk about like what is really intelligence and what is like at the core of human creation and human spirit, I think it's a lot closer to the guys on the street in New York freestyling with the dude with the mobile keyboard than it is like turning a PowerPoint into 3 bullets to send an executive summary to somebody. And so, yeah, I think it can help take a lot of that weight off and let us get into expression and into like what's really core about the human experience. And that's potentially what's exciting.
It potentially.
Potentially.
Yes. Let us hope for that.
We'll hope for it.
We will hope for that. Ben Kellie, you are the co-founder and CEO of Allied Atomics.
Applied.
Yes, nuclear fission. Come on, we need this. Let's happen. And let's go already, Ben.
Thank you.
Wishing you the best.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Take care.